Assalamu alaikum, mamas. It's great to be here on Muslim Mamas, hosting this live nutrition, health, and well-being. My name is Shanaz. I'm an Insta blogger, well-being coach, and fitness enthusiast. Today, we've got two special guests joining me: Dr. Abedah Shukr, who is a GP, mom of two, medical educator, and she has special interest in women's health. We also have Azmina Govindji, an award-winning dietitian, consultant, nutritionist, published author, and South Asian face of Better Health campaign. Welcome to this live, and thank you for coming on here. I'm really excited to ask you guys loads of questions. I will be now and again coming off the screen because I've got loads of questions to ask, so just please bear with me. Anyone who's coming on, thank you for joining. If you have any questions, please drop your questions, and towards the end we'll answer them, inshallah. So the first question we have is, can you talk to us about Better Health campaign? Better Health campaign is a national campaign. How relevant and compatible is it in our culture and our community?
So Public Health England's Better Health campaign is a countrywide major health campaign that's designed to help us all to eat better and to be more physically active. We know that more than 56% of South Asians are either overweight or obese, and this puts you more at risk of conditions like type 2 diabetes, heart disease, some cancers, and now COVID-19. And a recent government survey showed that 9 out of 10 of us are now ready to make some healthier changes. So that's why I'm one of the experts, one of the spokespersons, and it's great to have Dr. Abedah as well. Public Health England are actually using experts like us to help reach the communities in a more culturally appropriate way.
Thank you. Thank you for answering that question. Your face is just right for the Better Health campaign. Why do people gain weight and make unhealthy choices?
Yes, so really important question. And really a question that's key to understanding how we can lose weight and how we can work towards a healthier weight. So fundamentally, the reason we put on weight is because the amount of calories we're consuming is more than the calories that we're then burning. So our consumption is greater than the amount of exercise we're doing to burn that off. But actually, there are loads and loads of factors that contribute to why people put on weight. So when we look a little bit more about what we're eating, it is what we're eating, but also things like portion sizes, the types of food that we're eating. So high fat diet, high sugar diet, high carbohydrate load, all contribute to weight gain. There's a few other factors as well that are really important. So increasingly, there's a lot of evidence that being sedentary for prolonged periods of time actually leads to significant weight gain. Now, what that means is it's really quite relevant to us kind of living in the UK. A lot of us have desk jobs. We're sitting for long periods of time without getting up. Yeah. And even if we are exercising, that prolonged period of being sort of sedentary has a really big impact on weight gain. Which is why we encourage people, if you have desk jobs, make sure you get up, have a stretch, move a little bit, because that's a massive risk factor for weight gain. Other things as well, so poor sleep. So actually, increasingly, there's a lot of evidence with busy life, multiple pressures on us. Sleep is one of the things that is affected detrimentally, and poor sleep is also associated with significant weight gain. Other things, so stress, so chronic stress increases your basal cortisol level, which is a hormone in the body that's related to appetite, increase in appetite. So that also has a massive impact. And also when we're stressed, we tend to rush to sugary foods, quick high to get us going. We're all guilty of doing that. And again, that's a massive contributing factor. But of course, there are other things that are beyond our control. So health problems that sort of put you at increased risk for weight gain, so hypothyroidism, and also medication can also have an impact. So I guess in summary, fundamentally, it's more calories in than out, but it's complex and there's lots of
So what are the risks of being overweight, and why should one lose weight? I mean, one could be quite comfortable with it, but why should one lose weight?
Absolutely. It's very easy to put on weight, and it's very difficult, very challenging to get rid of it, which is what the Better Health campaign is all about supporting. So there are multiple risks of being overweight. And I think one of the things that the current coronavirus pandemic has brought home is that obesity and being overweight has been a huge factor in outcomes for people that have been infected with coronavirus. And it's kind of brought home the health inequalities that exist in terms of risk factors for diseases. So things like heart disease, diabetes, high blood pressure. So people with those conditions have had very poor outcomes with coronavirus, whether it's prolonged illness or actually being hospitalized. And we know that if you're obese, you are twice as likely to be hospitalized with coronavirus. Right. So the impact of being overweight, for me as a GP, the biggest factor is long-term, your risks of developing other diseases. So diabetes, high blood pressure, cancers, interestingly. So actually being overweight puts you at a significantly increased risk of developing cancers, and other things such as joint disorders, so osteoarthritis, musculoskeletal aches and pains, leading to difficulty with exercising and making it difficult to lose weight. So there are multiple risks with being overweight. And I think the current climate that we're in has really brought home what a dangerous risk factor obesity can be for health outcomes.
Absolutely. Also made you realize how important it is now. Okay, thank you for answering that question so nicely. We've got the next question we're going to go for is a lot of people find difficult to get involved in physical activity, especially when they're looking after kids. What kind of tips or suggestions can either of you guys make?
Okay, so with regards to exercise, I guess there's no hard and fast rules, and it really will vary from one person to the next. I think any form of exercise is beneficial, and even if it's the tiniest thing that you're doing, keep doing it, because that's the key. And it's about building on that gradually and according to what you can kind of tolerate and fit into your life. Generally speaking, the NHS advise that all of us should be doing 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. So that translates to about 20 to 30 minutes of moderate exercise daily. Mm-hmm. So that, by moderate, it's something that gets your heart rate going, prevents you from maybe speaking in full sentences because you're a little bit short of breath. So it may be things like a brisk walk, it can be weight training, it can be swimming, cycling, all of those things count as exercise. If you're somebody who's a bit more advanced with your exercise regime, you can do 75 minutes or more of intensive exercise. So that's actually really going for it. So really getting out of puff, really getting your heart rate up. And that translates to about 10 minutes a day. So things like high intensity interval training. So 10 minutes of HIIT exercise is good enough. And the more you do, the better.
Absolutely.
Another thing I guess is that you need to look for what you enjoy. A lot of people I see, they'll go from one extreme of an unhealthy, sedentary lifestyle, not being active, not eating well, and then they'll go to an extreme where they eat very little and exercise a lot. Now, that's not sustainable. So it's really important to find what fits for you, find what you enjoy, and maybe get support from your family members or your friends. So at the moment, we're all quite restricted, but there are really good gadgets. So for example, the Active 10 app, which you can download as one of the apps that is great within the Better Health campaign, because it actually just helps you to start that brisk walking for 10 minutes, and then you can build up if you like. There's also the Couch to 5K, which has been one of the most successful apps.
Yeah, I know, I love it.
You've tried it, haven't you?
I'm literally using all the apps.
Really? Okay, well, it's such a good one, isn't it?
Yeah, Active 10 is brilliant because you get these little rewards to say you've done it. And I literally do it to get my little rewards. So it's amazing.
That's exactly how it's supposed to work. And that's what I mean by having fun. You've got to enjoy it. And I think that keeping a track of things also gives you targets, and supporting each other is a great way to indulge in exercise or even healthy eating.
Azmina, I just want to pick up on a point you made actually about sort of doing what you enjoy and starting with what's manageable. So one of the things I love about the Couch to 5K is that it does exactly what it says. So you are, a couch potato, so to speak, and it's going to get you running 5K. And I think one of the things is when we decide to make it a conscious decision to start exercising, our motivation is so high and we really think we can go for it. Our motivation plummets significantly as the days and weeks go on. And this app really just does it the other way. So it starts low and gradually builds you up. And that's the thing that I love about this app as well.
Good, good.
Brilliant. Okay, so the next question we have is again about exercise. How much exercise, I think you covered some of that, how much exercise one should be doing? What are the benefits for getting active? And can you give examples of how people can get fit during current restriction? I think some of the stuff you covered already, but is there anything else you can add to that?
Yeah, so I think we've covered sort of how much exercise, and really, I just want to stress this is guidance. For some of us, doing 10 minutes a day is plenty and it's enough. There can be days where you don't exercise at all. That's okay, absolutely fine. But the key is the momentum and the regularity and what you can fit into your life. So what kind of exercises can we do in lockdown? So I guess one of the things that lockdown has been the biggest kind of hurdle and the biggest kind of life event that all of us have ever experienced, and the biggest health crisis in modern history. And what it's effectively done is locked us into our homes. You know, we can't step out of the house unless we have a valid reason. And the thing that suffered is our physical health, and, you know, the lack of movement and the lack of regular exercise. Gyms have shut. I think start simple and start with things that you enjoy, as Azmina had said. So I find, as a mum with 2 young children, just going out for a walk with the 2 of them is a good start for me on some days. The other thing, I think we're on a mums group, and I think we can often get really bogged down with our day-to-day life, the kids, if you're working, things around the house, shopping, so many things that sort of crop up. And we become the sort of low priority in terms of exercise, just goes out the window because we just don't have the time. So I think it's really short, sharp. Home exercises are good. There's lots of health videos out there. The apps are amazing just in terms of making small steps and going on to bigger things. But, you know, get outdoors. I think that's the big thing. Get outdoors, get moving, get, you know, walking. Another thing I just want to touch on is weight training. So weight exercise are really, really good for muscle build-up and fat burning. And it doesn't have to be huge amounts. It can be 10 minutes. It can be 15 minutes of kind of resistance training, and that's quite good. And you can do that at home with anything you've got around the house as weights.
Yeah, that leads up to another question, which is quite relevant. Is one of the Muslim mamas says, I find it difficult to make time for physical activity when I'm looking after my kids. Do you have any tips and suggestions? It's just exactly what we were saying.
Yeah, it's really fitting in and trying to get it into your daily routine. I think when we make a big fuss about exercise, it can get difficult. So when it's a big event, I'm going to go to the gym with all my bits and bobs. That's difficult because that's difficult to work into your life if you've got other things going on. So it's just something, you know, try and fit it into your everyday life, whether that's, you know, 15 minutes in your living room in front of the TV with a fitness video on, or it's a daily walk, or it's carrying something heavy that little bit further. So simple things that you can fit into everyday life. Regularize it, normalize it, and that's the key way that you can just keep it going as a busy mum. I can completely relate because
I relate to that question. But like you said, normalizing. I've got 3 young boys as well, and this is something that I've been doing with my kids during this lockdown. At the beginning, they will be jumping all over me every time I was doing workout, but now my youngest 3 probably does better workouts than me. So it's like every time I put it on, he knows exactly what he's doing. He's counting me in now.
Yeah.
It's amazing once you get your children involved, and
Yes.
yeah, it becomes normal to them. Okay, so we've got another Muslim. Yeah, sorry.
I was going to say the other thing, just to reassure that Muslim mama who asked the question. I think we underestimate just how many calories we use up by looking after young children. You know, running around after children and constantly getting up and making them food and snacks and doing this and doing that. This is all part of activity. So maybe we also need to celebrate that and be positive about it, that actually we are pretty active when we've got young children. I think where we perhaps go wrong is what you said in the very beginning, Shanaz, about desk jobs, how we're just sitting there the whole time. And perhaps we need to incorporate, I use something called pomodoro, which is an Italian word for tomato. And I put my alarm on every 20 minutes. And every 20 minutes, I will stand up and I will move around. It might be go up and down the stairs a few times or just move around and then come back.
Yes.
Great for preserving your posture and your neck ache and your backache, but actually you're building up your physical activity without even thinking about it, and your productivity improves too.
That's a great idea. I'm going to try that.
I don't know if either of you use standing desks. That's another big thing that's sort of coming in. So you're upright for longer, which is really good for musculoskeletal health. So yes, lots of ways we can incorporate a little bit of exercise into our daily life.
Yeah. Okay, so thank you for that, ladies. For the next one we have, again, these questions were asked by Muslim Mama. So I'm worried about a lot of loose skin after losing weight. I heard loose skin can cause further health problems. Is that true?
Okay, so that might be to me. So loose skin in itself causing health problems, it doesn't in itself. Having a lot of excess loose skin can cause certain specific problems. So things like candida skin infections. If you've got a lot of loose skin that's touching another bit of skin, you can get infections underneath that bit of skin. But in itself, loose skin isn't harmful. So we often do see sort of if there's been significant weight gain around the abdomen and the skin is sort of hanging a little bit, you can get infections under there. They're not that common, and actually with kind of good skincare, that risk can be reduced.
Okay.
Usually, if there's been quite a lot of weight loss, so significant amount of weight loss very rapidly, the skin doesn't have enough time to shrink back, or just not hang as much, and that can sometimes, with the lower abdominal skin, cause things like back pain. So if there's a lot of skin hanging, that can cause a little bit of back pain and postural problems. But in itself, it's not a health risk, and I would really encourage people to not worry too much about that, because actually, if your weight loss is step by step in gradual sort of aliquots, and you're sort of doing it slowly and steadily, the amount of excess skin is actually significantly reduced. It's rapid, vast amounts of weight loss that will often cause the excess skin. And in itself, no health risks, but just doing a bit of skincare and watching out for things like posture and back pain is important.
Right. Thank you for that. I've got another question was asked by Muslim Mama. I'm currently pregnant. Is it wise to participate in any physical activity?
Okay, so yeah, this is a really common question I get asked as a GP. I'm pregnant, what's safe to do, what isn't. So I guess the first thing I would ask is, what were you doing before you were pregnant? So if you weren't doing much exercise before you were pregnant, don't go for it during your pregnancy. Just carry on roughly at the level that you were going at before. Exercise is not harmful in pregnancy at all, and there's a lot of evidence that good musculoskeletal health is really beneficial for labour and your recovery after giving birth. So it's perfectly safe. You're allowed to do cardiovascular exercise, you're allowed to do resistance and weight exercise, but it's really about the woman and what she's used to. If you were previously doing a lot of exercise before you were pregnant, chances are you'll manage to do a fair bit of that, although probably not as intense. But I certainly wouldn't advocate pregnant women to not exercise at all, because actually, as we discussed, being sedentary, not moving is always harmful. And potentially with sort of giving birth, the more movement you've had, often that has a really positive impact on delivery. So I'd encourage it, but really look at yourself in terms of what you could do before and what's realistic. Don't push yourself too hard, but definitely keep the movement and exercise going during pregnancy. It's hugely beneficial.
And the only thing I would add to that, in terms of diet, I get a lot of pregnant women now thinking I can eat for two. No.
Isn't that true, Azmina?
I wish that were true, because I've had 2 pregnancies and I try to be very strict. But actually, when you look at the evidence, the only amount that is recommended is 200 extra calories. That's what you would get from half a pint of milk. And obviously I'm mentioning milk because you need your calcium intake, you need your fluid. So actually it's not an excuse to eat food. And what you don't want is to gain a lot of weight during pregnancy, because you're more at risk of things like gestational diabetes, and it'll just be much harder for you. So an extra 200 calories. You know about folic acid. I'm sure your doctor or midwife have told you. Folic acid supplements when you are trying for a baby and up until the 12th week. And that's to reduce the risk of spina bifida. And the only last thing I'll say is that the baby's brain is developing in the last trimester, which is the last 3 months of pregnancy. So that's the time you want to think about those brain building nutrients, such as omega-3 fats from oily fish. So think about your diet throughout, but the brain is developing later. So what would be the best way to eat then? And enjoy variety, and don't worry about peanuts unless there is a specific nut allergy within your family.
That's a great one. You covered that there, because I think those are all those things I went through literally throughout all my pregnancy. But I think
good advice of your doctor, your dietitian. If you're That's the thing with Abedah and I. We're here to give very general advice. We cannot give specific advice to an individual. We would always say, if you've got any sort of personal questions like that, best to talk to your GP, talk to a dietitian, so that you're getting that individual attention.
Yeah.
Absolutely. As a mom of 3, I feel like I'm asking this question for myself. I feel run down and just exhausted. What can I do to feel well and energized? Also, is it true that after 40, our bodies slow down and it's harder to lose weight?
So nutrition is crucial for your energy levels, because whatever you eat has calories, and you need calories for energy. Right. And what we need to think about is getting our calories from better foods. I call it getting value for your calories. So think about the foods that are supplying those calories, and have foods like whole grains, pulses like dals and lentils and beans and peas, nuts, seeds, fruits and vegetables. These whole plant foods will help you with your general well-being and your energy levels, because they are usually high in fiber and have what's called the low glycemic impact. What that basically means is when you eat a carb, your blood sugar goes up. And if you eat a carb that is refined, let's say a sugary drink, then your blood sugar, your blood glucose goes up really quickly, and it goes down very quickly. And then you want something else. You might have a chocolate, and it's going up again and down again. And that doesn't help your energy levels. So if you want steady energy levels throughout the day, you want to find foods that give you slow and steady rises in your blood glucose levels. And those are foods like the whole grains and the dals and the beans and the fruit, vegetables, nuts and seeds. So make sure you have these foods. Eat regular meals. So if you're going to miss a meal, I mean, of course, during Ramadan, it's hard, but on a typical day, if you're going to miss meals thinking that'll help me lose weight, I'll forget lunch today, not a good idea. Far better to make sure you have regular meals, regular snacks, but that you choose them wisely. And you go, for example, for, brown basmati rice, rather than white rice, because that will give you more of those slower rises. It will help you to keep fuller for longer because it's got more fiber. If you're choosing atta, use coarse wholemeal atta, again, higher in fiber, better for you. You're even getting some B vitamins from these foods. And B vitamins are needed for nervous energy, which is again to do with your mood and your energy levels. So eat a variety of foods, eat regular meals and snacks, and try to have more and more of these high fiber plant-based foods.
Thank you. I feel like literally that question was from me or something. The next question kind of aligns with that. Does menopause have an impact on general fitness and health?
Okay, so yeah, that's a really interesting question about menopause and better health. So we know that around the time of the menopause, we understand it to mean your periods stop. But what happens in reality that has an impact on the woman? So there's a rapid decline in estrogen in women when they go through the menopause. And that does have some implications for weight and well-being. So we know that a lack of estrogen can cause weight gain in itself. The other thing that happens during the menopause is that a lot of women lose muscle mass. So your muscle, the amount of muscle you have starts to decline because of these hormonal changes. Now, when you lose muscle, you inherently lose the ability to burn fat a little bit, because having muscle utilizes a lot of energy. And if you've got less muscle, actually you tend to store more fat. Sure. So that does contribute to weight gain. But actually, I want to be really positive about menopause, because it's really surrounded with a lot of negativity that you hit this age and suddenly, oh my God, it's just awful. There's a lot of evidence that if you are somebody who's exercised and kept well in terms of your health before you've reached the menopause, so in your 20s, 30s, it's never too early to start. The way your menopause kind of in terms of symptoms pans out is much more positive. So you experience fewer symptoms, you experience fewer musculoskeletal problems, because the other thing that the low estrogen does is it reduces your calcium absorption into your bones. So you start to lose a bit of calcium from your bones, and that puts you at increased risk of osteoporosis, so a brittle bone. So that does have implications for you, because actually exercising can be difficult. You get more muscular aches and pains, which is very common in women that have the menopause. So in that sense, yes, there is the menopause has an impact on sort of weight and your general well-being. But there's lots of things you can do beforehand. So exercising beforehand, in your 20s, 30s, really building up that bone strength. And actually what Azmina was saying about diet, nutritional support for bone health is really important, because that will protect you after you start going through the menopause. One of the other things that I really advocate with a lot of my patients who are going through the menopause and really suffering quite significant symptoms is that exercise is actually a really helpful treatment, in inverted commas, for menopausal symptoms, and exercising can significantly reduce the unpleasant symptoms that a lot of women experience.
The other thing, Shanaz, if I may add, I know we will probably talk about vitamin D later, but I'll just bring it in here, that because of what Dr. Abedah has just said about losing calcium from the urine, you have to be particularly careful that whatever calcium you're eating from your foods is well absorbed by the body. And you need vitamin D to absorb that calcium. If you don't have enough vitamin D, you could be having lots of calcium-rich foods, but you will not make use of it. And that therefore does not help reduce your risk of osteoporosis or brittle bones. So take a vitamin D supplement. It's imperative that South Asians take a vitamin D supplement every day. The government recommends 10 micrograms per day, but I'm sure your doctor, especially if they've given you a blood test, will advise you on the dose that is right for you, and it may be higher than that. And especially because we know that vitamin D appears to be associated with your risks of COVID. So, this is a double effect. We're going to be helping reduce our risks of these menopause-related bone brittleness, but we're also improving our immunity. And that's immunity not only against COVID-19, but against other infections. So make sure when the sun is out, and the sun will be out, inshallah, in a few weeks, whatever part of your skin you can expose yourself to the sun for about 15 minutes so that you can manufacture that vitamin D in the sunlight, but probably you won't get enough if you're someone who covers your whole body. So you must make sure you take that vitamin D supplement.
Azmina, I'm going to come in on that actually, because it's a really, really important point that you've raised about vitamin D. So I work in an area where there's a very big Muslim population, a lot of women from Indian, Pakistani, Bangladeshi background. And vitamin D deficiency, we don't even test anymore, because all of these women have deficiency in vitamin D. So I think on that point, you raise a really important point about COVID and vitamin D deficiency, and also the many, many poor health outcomes that can come from low vitamin D. There's a huge amount of stuff that I can talk about, but I won't at the moment. But I just want to talk about the dosing. I think it's perfectly safe, actually, for women to take between 400 and 800 international units of vitamin D daily, just as a supplement. You don't need a blood test. That is perfectly safe to take because of our ethnic background, and particularly for Muslim women, because we're covered. If we cover, going out in the sunlight, we're just not going to get enough. Even on the hottest day in the summer, we're not going to get enough. So just pop that supplement, take it. It's great, and actually it makes a massive difference to how you feel.
Yeah. Again, I feel like that question was for me. I'm going to just say a little bit towards that. When it comes to vitamin D's, just don't be lazy about it. Just make sure you take it, put it somewhere in front of you where it's visible, and it becomes part of your daily routine. So you're making sure you're intaking that. Okay, thank you for that. It was a good reminder for myself as well. So I'm confused. I've got another thing. I've got confused. This is a question about diets. I'm confused about the amount of diets out there. What are the better diets? There's so much overwhelming amount of information on the internet. How do I know what portion size, what groups to eat? I know it's a bit of a long question. What would you guys recommend?
So I love that question because it touches on that nutrition misinformation, or as we often hear, fake nutrition news, because there are so many people with an opinion about nutrition. And what I would say firstly is make sure you get your nutrition advice from someone who's qualified to give it. So a dietitian is the only legally protected title and the only legally recognized qualification in nutrition. Anyone in this room can call themselves a nutritionist. You don't need to be qualified. And that's why we've got all these Instagrammers giving you your nutrition advice. But you cannot, it is illegal to call yourself a dietitian. So firstly, get your advice from a dietitian who is trained not only in the science of nutrition, but in how to apply that to you as an individual for your particular risk profile, your medical history, and your lifestyle. So that's the first thing. The second thing is those diets are so tempting, aren't they? You know, lose half a stone in 2 weeks, and you know, try this cabbage and you'll be slim as me, and all this sort of stuff. Do not get sucked into these unbalanced, unhealthy ways of eating. These diets, firstly, of course you'll lose weight because your calorie intake is going to be in your boots. So you'll lose weight and you'll think, wow, that's great. That diet was great. Now I can come off the diet. So you start eating normally and your weight goes back up. And then you find another diet. I was interviewed by the Daily Mail the other day about, I think it was Beyonce's maple syrup and lemon juice diet. I mean, don't get me started on this. Of course you will lose weight. So you lose weight and then you start eating normally again and you put on weight. And there's research to show that if you do this yo-yo dieting, then you are likely to gain more weight. You will end up being heavier after all these diets than you were when you first started. And that can be even more harmful to the organs of your body and your long-term health. So do not get sucked into a trendy diet. What I would recommend is the NHS 12-week free weight loss app.
Right.
You know, I've looked at it, I've helped to implement it, and we've got some recipes coming on the Easy Meals app. You can find me on @Azmina Nutrition, @Azmina Nutrition on Instagram. I'm happy to give you tips on there. Find qualified people and try the NHS app. And like we said with exercise, do what you enjoy. So eat foods you enjoy. Do not force yourself to eat unhealthy foods. Are you all getting a hissing sound or is it just me?
I'm getting a little bit, yeah.
I hope you can still hear me, but I wanted to show you.
Oh, great, that's perfect. That was my next question.
Oh, really? Oh, well, there you go.
I've
preempted your next
perfect.
I've used it in my book, Vegan Savvy, which is covered with lots of infographics. But I wanted to show you this because I get asked this a lot. And whenever I show people this, it sort of changes their life because they start to think about practical food rather than a diet. So imagine you've got your plate in front of you, split it into 4 quarters, imaginary quarters, veggie, so fill half of it with your bing dao, your bengan or your salad, etc. Fill a quarter of it with your protein, so that might be meat, chicken, fish, or if you prefer vegetarian, then dal, tofu, beans could go there. And then only a quarter for your carbs, and make sure that these carbs are the high fiber carbs like whole grain atta and brown basmati rice and other high fiber foods. So if you eat this way, where half your plate is filled with veg or fruit, your after dinner fruit could even fit there, that will automatically cut your calories, so you'll lose weight. It will automatically reduce the glycemic impact of your meal, which means if you have type 2 diabetes, this way of eating and the whole grains here will help your blood glucose control. It will automatically reduce your blood cholesterol levels if you have raised cholesterol, because the types of fiber that I'm recommending here are soluble fibers like oats, beans, and lentils that help to lower your blood cholesterol, and you will get those energy levels that we talked about earlier.
Brilliant. That's a great way of demonstrating.
That's fantastic, Azmina. I might actually take that back to my patients. I think that'd be brilliant. That plate's amazing.
Try it, but I've got a downloadable version on my website. I don't know if I can show you it here, but if you go on to azminanutrition.com, you can actually download the graphic for that.
Amazing.
Might be
I definitely will. Thank you.
I'll be looking for that later. So just to add on to that question, are carbs bad for you?
So
all the diets say that carbs are bad for you. it's like a no-no for some reason.
Yeah, and I feel so sad about this. Carbs are not the enemy. I was on BBC Two's Food Unwrapped lunch program the other day, and I was asked that specific question that, carbs are bad. What is it? No carbs before marbs? I've never heard of that. But the presenter, Jimmy's Farm, asked me, and I thought, okay, I better get clued up on this. But basically, you need carbohydrate. It is fuel for your brain. The problem is the type of carbohydrate that you choose. So there are starchy carbohydrates like bread, breakfast cereals, atta, rice, quinoa. And then there are the sugary carbs, which are like your chocolates, your cakes, your biscuits, your sugary drinks. Now, you all know that those sugary carbs are the less healthy ones, and we should try and cut down on those. And our carbs should come from starchy carbohydrates. But within those starchy ones, there are the even better ones, which are the ones I was talking about. So those whole grain carbs. So if you're having a breakfast cereal in the morning, find a high fiber whole grain breakfast cereal or have some porridge. If you're buying bread, go for granary or whole grain bread. For your atta, choose coarse whole grain atta. So always choose those whole grain high fiber carbs.
Right.
Azmina, I'm just going to say as well, I think I always find it's a red flag for me whenever there's a diet that says don't eat whatever it might be. We're allowed to eat a little bit of everything. It's all about the proportions. And the good stuff, have more of it, and things that are a little bit bad, have a little bit of it. I think complete exclusion is only if you've got allergies. Otherwise, you can enjoy a little bit of everything, but in the right proportions. Would you agree?
Definitely. As soon as you say to yourself, I can't have that, what happens?
You want it.
You want it, right? So that is not a good psychology.
Yeah.
Allow yourself those treats. I mean, like a 2-finger wafer biscuit. I'm not going to mention any brands because I'm not allowed. But, a small biscuit or a small piece of, or even something like 3 dates or whatever. But have small amounts of these accessible. But in addition, keep at the front of your cupboard, keep the healthier versions. So your whole grain crisps even, or baked crisps, your nuts, unsalted nuts. Make some homemade popcorn and try not to add so much sugar and salt. Try some whole roasted charna. Have a handful of beautiful roasted badam. So there are lots of healthier snacks and foods, and there's nothing wrong with having small amounts of the unhealthy ones, but keep the healthy ones close to you.
Absolutely. Okay, so that's another question leading up to. This is something that I think a lot of people get confused. I know you showed the diagram of the plate. So how do you know what micros should be? I know you kind of like demonstrated, and it's like a term that you use. How do you know what micros should be? How can you stay on track even though you have some off days? And what kind of things where do we go wrong?
Sure. So I think the question was macros or micros.
Yeah,
Let me quickly explain it. Okay, macros are just macronutrients, and what that means is protein, fat, carbohydrate, and we talked about that with the plate. So where your protein should go, your fats are probably somewhere in here. You might have used some in cooking your bindi or your karela or whatever. So those are called macronutrients. Those are nutrients that give us calories. Micronutrients are your vitamins, your minerals, your phytochemicals, your trace elements, your antioxidants. These are really important, and you will hear more about this as time goes on, because in the UK, we are starting to see low levels of certain micronutrients. So we talked about calcium and vitamin D, those are micronutrients. But I specialize in plant-based eating and vegan diets, and I'm seeing a lot of young Muslim girls going on vegan diets and not having dairy anymore. Now, if you're not having dairy, you're going to be lower in calcium and iodine, which is another micronutrient. And so you need to make sure you're getting those from fortified plant-based alternatives. So that's the difference. The other part of your question was around, if you have some off days, what can you do? Well, do you know what? Don't beat yourself up. We all have off days. You know I'm a very positive person now, don't you? I'm not going to worry about, I've had a bad day, my diet starts on Monday. No, once you acknowledge that I've not done so well, don't beat yourself up, but say up until now. Those are my 3 magic words. Up until now. Now I'm going to get back on track, and make sure you have those regular meals and healthier snacks.
Yeah, thank you for that. We've got a few more questions, guys. We're coming to an end. This is going so well. um, so what we've kind of like you mentioned about the immune, the iron. So I'm just going to ask a question if there's anything else you missed out. So what immune boosting food would you recommend? I know you mentioned about the vitamin D and iron stuff, but I'll ask that question. So what immune boosting food would you recommend? And is it better to take multivitamins? Or better to take vitamin D, iron, other supplements individually?
Okay, well, I'll start off, and perhaps if Dr.
Sure.
Abedah's got something to add. So no single food or nutrient is going to suddenly boost your immune system.
Right.
You need to have a variety of colorful, naturally colorful foods to make sure you get the wide range of nutrients you need for every part of your body and for your immunity. Now, of course, we've talked about vitamin D, and that's the only one I would single out. And I think we've said enough about vitamin D. But you mentioned another micronutrient a little while ago, which was iron. And it's not that iron boosts your immunity, but it relates to an earlier question, which we talked about energy levels. And perhaps this is a good time to mention iron, because if you're not getting enough iron is needed for your red blood cells, and the red blood cells carry oxygen to all parts of your body. So if your iron levels are low, then you're not getting enough hemoglobin, which your doctor might test for you if you're worried about this. And if you're not getting enough hemoglobin, your oxygen isn't circulating to all your cells quite so efficiently, and therefore you feel tired. So to reduce tiredness and fatigue, certain nutrients such as iron, vitamin C, vitamin D, some vitamin E, some B vitamins even, help to reduce tiredness and fatigue. And I would suggest you get them from food rather than supplements. It's always better to get your nutrition from real food, because the way Allah and nature has made this food is it has all these beautiful chemicals, natural chemicals that enhance your absorption of the nutrient within that food. And scientists, we haven't yet discovered everything that's in a food. So we might know an apple's got some potassium, some vitamin C, and some fiber, but there will be other things in apples that we perhaps don't know about yet. They are enhancing your health by being in that apple. And it isn't the same to take a synthetic vitamin C and think, I've covered myself for my vitamin C. So I would always say food first, unless, of course, you have been diagnosed with a deficiency, in which case your doctor should refer you to a dietitian, or you may need supplements.
Yeah, I mean, Azmina, I wholeheartedly agree with you. So this is a question I get asked quite a lot. So, doctor, I'm constantly getting coughs and colds. What can I take to boost my immune system? And you're absolutely right. There is not one item or one food type or one vitamin that's going to boost your immune system. Your immune system is multifactorial. Part of your diet is part of your immune system, but there are multiple other things that have an impact. So I just want to reiterate the message about colourful food. So we've got a beige diet. My children love a beige diet. If it's pasta, it's plain. If it's rice, it's plain bread. The beige diet needs to go out the window, and we need to get green, yellow, brown, all colour of food on our plate, because that's the best thing to boost your immune system. Good sleep is essential. So sleep is a massive factor in terms of boosting your immune system, and stress is the other one. So we know that during times of high stress, we're more likely to get unwell. So stress management is really important, and exercise and diet play a massive part in managing our stress levels. So multiple factors. There's not one single thing that's going to boost your immune system. Diet plays a huge part, but focus on the other bits as well, because they're all equally, important.
And perhaps if I may add, your gut health is really important for your immunity. I think we underestimate our gut, because you know that you have these friendly bacteria that are living and colonizing your gut, but they help to prevent infections. They are really great immune boosting bacteria, and you need to feed them. And the way to feed them is with what we call prebiotic foods, such as bananas, asparagus, leek, onion, garlic. These are all great foods for your gut, as well as probiotics, which you would get from yogurt and fermented foods. And we're lucky within our cuisine, you know, yogurt is quite a standard. So make sure you enjoy lots of live yogurt. It can be bought or you can make it at home, and have those colorful fruits and vegetables to make sure you give your bacteria some food.
That's brilliant. Thank you, ladies. So this is, I think, a lot of women can relate to. How can we control cravings during period? And a lot of women struggle to stay on track.
So this might be one that we both answer, I'm not sure, but when your blood sugar is low, you often feel you want a craving, and during a period you might find this is what happens. And the way to combat it is to make sure you have those regular meals and snacks. So it's really important to have high fiber food. So even if you're going to have a snack, think of an oat cake and some hummus, or some whole grain crackers and some peanut butter. Think about having a snack in between meals or a piece of fruit. And then for your meals, go for those high fiber foods again. Make sure you're having some beans, some lentils, some dal, some sweet corn, some peas, whole grain atta, etc. Because again, that will help your blood glucose level to be nice and steady. And try and avoid the very high sugary foods. You know, often people who have these cravings, they just want something sweet. And that's the worst thing you can do, because what I've said is your blood sugar is probably low. And if you then go for something sweet, you will instantly feel much better, but your blood glucose will go down quickly again. And again, you'll want something sweet. And as I've explained earlier, this yo-yoing of blood glucose is not healthy and will not help you in the long term. So regular meals, high fiber foods, high fiber snacks, and lastly, lots of fluid. It can be lassi, it can be water, it can be lemon water, it can be a small glass of fruit juice. And the reason why I say a small glass is because it has free sugars, and we need to be mindful of the sugar that's coming from even unsweetened fruit juice, especially during cravings. That have lots of fluid.
Yeah, that's great. Fruit juice, I didn't really ever think about that, but yeah, juices has a lot of sugar, so a little bit would probably pull you together. Okay, so we've got one question coming through from the group. What is the best oil to use in cooking?
Okay, so the one that I would recommend in our cuisine is rapeseed oil. Rapeseed oil is a very similar chemical configuration to olive oil. So you know how we often talk about olive oil being a great oil, and it is a monounsaturated oil. Well, rapeseed oil is also a monounsaturated oil, but it doesn't have that intense flavor that olive oil has. So in our cuisine, it works really, really well. And it has a higher smoking point. So again, you don't need to worry about that. The other reason why I recommend rapeseed oil is a lot of people say olive oil is far too expensive for me. You can get rapeseed oil in your supermarket. It's often under vegetable oil. Turn the bottle around and check 100% rapeseed oil. What you don't want to do is have ghee, which is a high saturated fat, as is butter, as is coconut fat. I know there have been so many adverts, and again, these Instagrammers and bloggers talking about coconut oil being the best oil. It is not. Coconut fat has more saturated fat than butter. Too much saturated fat raises your blood cholesterol. It has got the same calories as butter. So do not be misled. Try rapeseed oil or olive oil. If you don't like them, then corn oil, sunflower oil are all fine.
Okay, brilliant. So we've come to an end, ladies. That was brilliant. Can you provide us any tips or help for Better Health campaign? Can you tell us what people can do, what resources they can use once they come off live?
So the NHS website, nhs.uk/betterhealth, has a BMI calculator. There's the NHS free downloadable 12-week weight loss program. There's the Easy Meals app. There's the Active 10, Couch to 5K. So all of those resources are there. As I've said, you can look at my tips on @Azmina Nutrition on Instagram. And really just make sure whichever advice you get, look at who's writing that piece. Are they a qualified dietitian or a qualified doctor that's giving you the right advice?
I'm using all those apps. I'm doing the demo, so feel free to give me a follow on Instagram, Body Prison as well. Thank you so much for your time. Muslim Mamas, I don't know who's joined, but thank you so much for Muslim Mamas organizing this very important session, looking after our health and ourselves and our families through this through this tough time is very, very vital. Let's all prioritize this and maintain this effort. As mentioned in the live, you can find more information on NHS Better Health webpage. Thank you so much once again for having us. Hope you enjoyed this live. Hope you got some value from it. If you guys got any questions, do put it in, and I'm sure Muslim Mamas will just answer your questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.